So you've heard from Scott today. You heard from Jenna today on the See and Spray. And then I've asked Nate to read us.
I see they're using two about types of scanning out screw.
Sorry, but,
Get all four of you over
Need
here.
to keep our-
Randall expects us to move on.
Then I'll get out of your way.
You find that document?
Yeah, but I kind of want to just take a little bit of time back to where we started this afternoon and we got you going. But talk a little bit more, we can continue this conversation around connectivity. But Nate, if you're okay, can you maybe explain your entry here into the See and Spray and some of the things just kind of leading up to, introduce yourself first, I'll let you do that, and then talk a little bit about your entry here into the targeted spraying technology at the farm science.
Sure. I'm Nate Durius. I manage the farming operation at the Molly Ag Center. If you're familiar with Farm Science Review, you come to our facility once a year. That facility is split up kind of three ways. We have large interest in the demonstration fields, research, and the production side. We have a great relationship with our local dealer and John Deere. Agro supports us locally with everything. I wouldn't say we're always the first adopter, but we're typically early adopters of technology. The exact merge planters, we had those very early. The exact fly sprayer we've had since it started. So that next evolution is this targeted spray. And we kind of started at the top. We're expecting to have this See and Spray Ultimate machines that Jenna showed. So we're going to kind of start as complicated as you can get. So you got two of everything. And we're excited to have it. We have the sprayer. We have the technology piece already taken care of. We have a plan in place for several different herbicide strategies. We're going to do a combination of broadcast fields and some targeted spray fields. We're fortunate to have about 3 different scenarios of herbicide. We typically don't rely on the Canva at all, but we do rely on the Indiana list. If you're familiar with those products, so we'll have scenarios of those. And just like with the high-speed planters, there's a lot of other things that come along with it that we just don't know yet. On this dual tank system, I think there's going to be opportunities where we can look at fungicide applications independent of an insecticide or an herbicide application. So some of those that we'll kind of learn our way through it. But I'm excited to see that, and this will be a learning year for us, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So, well, maybe extend that if you don't mind real quick, but so has it already changed your mindset about how you had to set the machine up? Maybe go through some of that. I think we just kind of what we discussed the other day real quick, because I think that's the thing I want to kind of drive home. That we've got this technology, there's going to be a value proposition to it, but it's getting it in-house, understanding the technology, understanding the limitations, and you've already kind of embarked on that and coming up with a strategy yourself, correct?
Yeah, so we'll talk about the setup and what's different compared to what we've been doing, and then I'll touch on the economic numbers that we are forecasting right now. So with the PWM system, like I mentioned today, essentially pick your pressure, and you've chosen your rates, and you go to the field, and everything else can be a variable. We've been very successful with that, and I think we have the same expectation with targeted spray. Some of the things that are different are, I mentioned the tank mixes. So now with this machine, we have two totally independent tanks, and the plumbing that's associated with that. So as a grower, the first things we have to think about, we don't hot load loads. We're essentially loading in the field, and we bring everything as water as a carrier. But if you're a grower or potentially a co-op and you're hot loading, you gotta have 2 of everything. So we have to work through that scenario. We get it to the sprayer. We've got 2 nozzles that have to be selected to make sure we're successful there. Those nozzles could, we could be doing different rates there. The targeted spray has its own set of requirements there. So, we're spraying, you saw in all the videos, that's a rearward spray. So we've only got a certain amount of nozzles that deer has already tested to tell us they're gonna be successful. So we have to look at what the label says we want from a spray droplet. What our expected sprayer speed is gonna be, so for us, everything fits nicely between 8 to 12 miles an hour. What those rates are gonna be, it seems like we don't hardly need to spray anything at 10 gallons per acre anymore, everything's 15 to 20 gallons per acre. And, you know, we work through those scenarios, we choose the nozzle, we make sure the nozzles are on there correctly. When we think about the goals, that we have to make that successful, we're taking those spray applications and looked at potentially a 50% reduction in spray. Some of the deer numbers you've seen are 60 and closer to 70, but we're gonna start at 50 and see if we're successful there. So we can start to drive those potential ROI numbers. And it looks like most of ours actually are gonna land between $5 and $15 per acre returns. On the corn side, as was mentioned, it's a little bit more challenging. When we think about the corn herbicide programs we have locally, most of them we front load with a really good heavy residual up front, and then we don't rely on a lot post. In most cases, we can come in with a real simple, very inexpensive Roundup application to clean some things up. And when you're talking about a $7 application or something there, and it's going to cost you $3, and some things there that there's not a big bucket of return. So I think everything should fit within that. We're looking at several scenarios, like I said, and we'll see where we end up at the end of the season.
Lot to learn and be interesting. So has anyone got any questions for Evan? Start with
Do you think that the seed and spray technology is gonna eliminate having to do crop scouting?
You might repeat that for everyone.
Yeah, so the question was, will the See and Spray or targeted spray applications eliminate the need for crop scout? And we've gone along this relationship a while here. You know, we've and we still are using some drone scouting for some high intensity scouting. One of the things that I'm encouraged that Deere provides is the weed heat map that was discussed earlier. So we'll continue to get a map that shows where those weeds are, shows the intensity of them, and you know, essentially build history much like we do on yield. But somebody also has to go out and make sure the weeds have all been killed. We've got a very small window between planting and the growth stages of the height requirements that we have to hit. So somebody's got to be responsible for the timing. You know, a lot of growers or commercial applications rely on someone else to do that. So I still think there's a fit there for that.
I don't think so, Evan. I want to answer that because I don't think so. I think what I'm trying to get people to think about is with these heat maps, you're going to have some new data layers. Like in general, we know maybe what weeds are out there and they were heavily infested, or we just had a few escapes, whatever that might be. But it gives you another layer. Think about building that over years, some different layers for you to learn from, I think. And so I think what it boils down to, I think you're going to be more targeted in how you approach that field and how for you guys work with Nate, myself.
Yeah.
I just find we've got a lot to learn, but I think your approach and how you approach that field is going to change over time because you got new data at your fingertips versus maybe what we perceived or think we saw and not really captured that over time. And secondly, think about, you know, the work that you guys have been doing. We're going to quantify that now. And that, to me, quantifying it and bringing those metrics in and having a solution if needed, is going to be value for you guys to bring back to the growers. I still feel like you're going to be providing some of that to them myself.
Yeah, it's almost like a recon mission. Drone goes out and does dirty work first and makes it smarter before, you know, and logistics for products out into the field, what you need, how much.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just think we're going to be more informed to learn, and it's going to probably, again, I think you're going to look at it as more targeted type, how you're going to field by field type scouting, and ultimately what kind of recommendations or information you're going to bring back to Nate myself. So
I'd also add, I think there's more reasons than just weed control to scout, right? So See and Spray right now addresses one issue, and that's weed control. So until there's some other sort of traits or genetics that they're talking about maybe building into these plants, that See and Spray will use going into the future, I think you're still gonna have to do a lot of that.
Yeah, I got another comment, but we'll wait for another question, but I'll get it out. So, any other questions? Because I think one of the questions should be follow-up is, well, you know, if I can do this targeted spraying and let's pretend that it works, I mean, it does work. I don't want to say that, but let's just play this out. Well, what does that do to my technology fees? On my seed purchases now? What does that do? So I think it's something to kind of, you know, again, think about from a consulting perspective, but even selection of seed.
Yep.
I think that maybe changes some decisions long term, once it becomes, you know, more adopted. So. Any other questions? I know we're at the end of the day, but this is a great time, just to kind of get any lingering questions out. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I wasn't here for other sessions, so. So aside from weed spray, is there any work to be done, is there any incentive for work to be done with diseases, with the insect damage, you know, that type of spraying, similar but with these other pests?
Yeah, so I think there is potential for that on down the line. What we kind of talked about in the session earlier today was a lot of this is about how these models are trained, basically with millions of images. So, you know, I have no idea how many images they've really trained these models with so far, but the point is you have to go and get enough examples of that particular issue that the camera can identify that and be able to distinguish between issue or non-issue for all those different things. So it kind of becomes what's the priority. So I think, you know, they started with this weed control because it's a lot easier to identify between a corn plant and water hemp or mare's tail or something like that, versus trying to go in and specifically identify, you know, there's a lot of different nutrient deficiencies that can look very similar. There's a lot of different diseases that can cause similar issues. So trying to distinguish between those and take action on that, you know, basically instantaneously is a big challenge, but I do think there will be more work done on that in the future.
Ohio State University, we got one of the artificial intelligence centers. And we have a bunch of computer scientists that want to be working in agriculture, okay, and that comes with it some attendant challenges, okay? But the other thing is they're really talented people and they do great things. One of the things that we got funded through the Ohio Soybean Council was an opportunity to put together what I call use cases for this AI technology. And the way we're starting out is we're going out and meeting with experts and saying, hey, if you could do this, would that change the economics of production? Okay, and so what we're trying to do is drive it through economics and figure out what the use cases should be. Certainly, there's going to be a lot of people doing a lot of things just because they can. I don't think there's any question about that. But the thing I like about the spraying weeds is right now, you're going to save herbicide. There is a use case there and a financial return for that activity. So the question is, can we identify those other similar cases that these camera processor combinations will return value to farmers? And I think that's the way it's going to proceed as much as anything.
Scott, maybe share with him some of Chris's work. Sorry, Nate, just real quick, some of Chris's work on that topic.
Yeah, we got started, 6, 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, with using drones to scout within the canopy. One of the things we were looking for was crop stressors. We found out we could differentiate between insect feeding damage, we could northern corn leaf blight. You know, all these things have very predictable patterns, if you will. If you can visually see it, it's something easy for the AI system to pick up. We started looking at nutrient deficiencies in the lower leaves of the plant. You know, nitrogen deficiency in the lower rib, the lower leaves will be the midrib of the plant. It's very plain, it's chlorotic. When you get into some of the other ones, potassium deficiency, it might be the margins of the leaves that are affected. But those things that are very visual are very easy to sense using artificial intelligence. It's the same thing with soybeans. We started out, we have data sets, crop stress databases for both corn and soybeans, but looking within the canopy.
Sorry, Nate,
To your question specifically about the sprayer, the deer sprayer in this case, with all the cameras. From a grower perspective, I think the couple of things that I would be interested in, that we're already using either a drone or another source to collect, are the population density maps, right? That camera is gonna be able to see plants and dictate what they are. Can it also count them? Give us a population map. If you think of that timing between planting and side dress application, for example, on corn, and then maybe also an NDVI type of map, there may be a case where we can drive nutrient decisions for that side dress application, either spoon feeding or reduction, depending on what the environment tells us. But that would be a nice one from my perspective.
Going along with what Nate just said, maybe we overseed everything, come back and have plans to get the perfect sample.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes. Oh, they're talking a lot now about using tissue samples and stuff too to know what's going on out there, so. I'm assuming somewhere down the line, we'd be able to say like between kind of thermal imaging and then tissue sampling, say like, okay, these parts of the field maybe need foliar feeding, these parts don't, kind of thing, or instead of having to sense anything, it'd be kind of your GPS map would run and feed it where it needs fed, like BRT feed it where it needs fed kind of thing.
Yeah, and for us, anytime we can take an application and go from broadcast to BRT, whether it be fertilizer, in this case, a targeted foliar application, we typically can reduce that cost and return investment. Can we do 2 independent prescriptions at the same time within one month? That would be value there. So in your case, we've used boron before as a foliar application. Based on tissue testing, if that can be site specific, we can have a prescription for that, and then either a broadcast or another independent prescription. That would be valuable.
Of course. Any other questions or comments? Cause I got one more. I always have something. So. Scott, I wanted to know, cause we talk about this wireless stuff quite a bit. What do you see, our bottlenecks being in the next 2 years? I mean, maybe kind of re-emphasize some of the points that you make, but what's our bottlenecks here for some of this to be turnkey and ready to go?
Yeah, I put it in 2 or 3 buckets. One of the issues, even if we, get to a point where we have private 4G LTEs, there's going to be backhaul. In other words, how do we connect it to the backbone of the internet? Is that fiber? Is that air fiber? What is that point to point? So that's going to be one of those things. I think that problem's probably solved a little bit. But what part of the infrastructure is going to be borne by the government versus private sector versus the independent farmer? And so those are some of the things I think we need to sort out. And I think there's a lot of rationale. I think we learned during the pandemic, we look at wireless communications or we look at broadband communications. Emergency services are first, and then we get the telemedicine and education being the next most important ones. But I'm going to tell you that the one right after that is farmers and their farming operations, because it's going to go to our productivity as a nation. I'm optimistic these satellite solutions, if you will, are going to be the holy grail. I hope they're the silver bullet. My experience tells me it's going to be a combination of technologies that get us to where we need to be. And again, what's government going to do? What's the private sector going to do? And then what is the person at the last acre or the last mile going to be responsible? That's going to be the challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to remind everyone, at least from my knowledge, a year and a half ago was the first case in the state of Ohio where a farmer could not purchase and utilize the technology that required the internet. And to me, that starts to be a concern on my part because our counterparts in Europe can use it if you so choose. But here's a case, and we can probably grow that out to 2 or 3 today that I kind of know about, where farmers in the state of Ohio are unable to adopt the technology because of lack of rural broadband, or more to Scott's point, having the upload speeds to support it. And so all of a sudden, I just want to remind everyone, as you speak to your commissioners and we talk about what's going on and being built out in your state, we need all the voices at the forefront because this is important. Again, I'm not advocating that, See and Sprays for everyone, but I'm gonna tell you, if you're gonna start using See and Spray, for example, Ultimate, and you're gonna start picking up some of this other, you're gonna, at some point, you gotta have not only the internet, but you gotta have the upload speeds to support it. And I feel like we're starting to get a little bit behind here in the US, and it's gonna have a direct impact on us to be profitable or more or less competitive globally.
So I mean, you talked about the private network setup, and that's a way to connect, in the field and everything, and take that in your own hands. But is there any like private pointed, like omnidirectional point to points that's being developed at all?
Yeah, there's a lot of 5 GHz now that's point to point. You can go 10, 12 kilometers with it. But the difference between that and connecting a tractor is you can focus the energy into a beam, okay? And you can set up and aim your antennas, if you will. The problem is when you got a tractor going around the field, the tractor has to have connectivity the entire time. When it goes over the hill, it goes into the dip, it better have connectivity.
So not a thing that you.
Well, it's gonna be tough to take some of those existing technologies, point-to-point technologies, and turn them into the same direction, okay? It's a lot of blending of antenna technology and a bunch of other things.
Because that would be the most ideal, I would think, because then you can just utilize the internet you already are paying for on your own.
Yeah.
So how does the Starlink work? They actually gonna mount those on all the tractors? Like the actual antennas or how?
Yeah, so basically it'll be a Starlink modem, if you will, on the top of the cab of any machine that needs it. So here's planning on basically they'll have a connectivity scorecard in every customer's operations center account. They'll be able to see a score for every field that they have about what the connectivity is like in that field and kind of make a judgment based off of that, whether they would benefit. So that Starlink modem will actually work in conjunction with the existing and/or our modem on the Deere side, basically just to boost that signal to where they can actually use it.
And it's pretty available, like in Dakotas and where they're happily happy.
Yeah. Theoretically, anywhere that you can get Starlink, you can use it on the Deere side, so.
You see that replacing the license model?
So the Deere, I think, is actually on AT&T, if I'm not mistaken. So they would actually just work in conjunction with that. It's basically a signal booster. Maybe long-term, they may look into eliminating those, but, they're saying right now, they haven't released a lot of specifics on the Starlink program yet, but, that it will cost to use the Starlink on the Deere end, where the Deere modems are a free option. They're gonna charge for that Starlink subscription, but it'll basically be whatever Starlink charges to use that system.
But I think, Kevin, to your comment, from what, at least talking to people that live kind of in the hills and stuff, in troubled areas where they don't have it, they can get Starlink. But the problem had been, at least, and this shouldn't be a problem for like Deere, you've been having to get on a list, and it could take 6 to 12 months for you to be up to get it turned for you to get access to it. So you kind of, up until this point, a lot of people are using it, but you can sit on a list potentially up to 6 to 12 months before you actually, it's just not calling the carrier and say, I want to be turned on today. There's been a list. So that's been a challenge. One of the small challenges.
I'll put on my John Deere hat, okay? I got a solution, potentially works worldwide. That means a lot when you're managing a machinery fleet, to know that you have that connectivity at a minimum, okay? Now, look, the speed's gonna be some challenges and things like that. There's gonna be a lot of other things we're gonna find out too. It's the coverage, it's the number of satellites orbiting. Elon Musk keeps building out the constellation, if you will. It's not quite there, but it's a lot better than it's ever been.
All right, we're at the end of the day. I want to thank Nate, Jen, and Scott for sticking around.